Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life. Please take a moment to like and subscribe, it really helps.
Today, we're really focusing in on Cassie Ventura and trying to understand the situation around this legal complaint she filed.
Yeah, it's a heavy topic.
It is.
Yeah.
So our source material is primarily that legal complaint, the one filed publicly in New York, Southern District, and also some bits from a CNBC TV 18 YouTube live stream.
Right, the one showing the scene outside the courthouse during some proceedings involving Sean Combs.
Exactly. So the mission today is really to pull out the key allegations Miss Ventura is making and just get a handle on the context surrounding all this legal stuff.
Okay, let's get into it.
Well, the first thing that strikes you is the contrast, isn't it? You've got this almost circus-like atmosphere outside the courthouse in the live stream clips.
Yeah, media everywhere, people milling around.
Right, security, people shouting things, just this general buzz of waiting for something to happen related to Combs. It feels quite chaotic, unpredictable even. Totally. Reading that live stream transcript, you get this raw, unfiltered view of the scene on the ground. Reporters, opinions being voiced. It's almost mundane in a way, but then you turn to the actual legal complaint filed by Mrs. Ventura, and wow, the level of detail, the seriousness of the accusations against Sean Combs, it's incredibly disturbing.
It really is. The complaint filed by Cassandra Ventura against Combs and his companies, it lays out this alleged pattern: abuse, violence, sex trafficking claims, and what she describes as just pervasive, coercive control over her.
And these aren't vague claims. They're specific, focused on her experience.
Very specific and deeply troubling.
Yeah, I mean, the details of Mrs. Ventura's complaint are stark. She alleges rape in her own home. Repeated instances of severe physical violence. She talks about punches, kicks, even being stomped on, leading to injuries.
And there's that other claim, too, about him allegedly blowing up a car, someone who was interested in her.
Yeah, that one's in there. It paints this picture, according to her complaint, of extreme intimidation, using force to control her life, her relationships.
It does. And the allegation about him pursuing a rival with a gun and then making her carry his firearm, I mean, that just underscores this alleged pattern of creating fear, wielding power.
It's chilling reading her account. And it didn't stop at physical violence, according to the complaint.
No.
She details forced sex acts with male sex workers, which she says he filmed. That specific detail from her complaint, it speaks to an extreme level of alleged control and degradation.
And beyond that, the complaint alleges he introduced her to excessive alcohol and drug use, fueled it even.
Right, and apparently required her to get illicit prescriptions for him.
Yeah, that element of alleged substance abuse in Ms. Ventura's account often witches into these patterns of control and abusive situations,
How so?
Well, by allegedly getting her involved with substances and then involving her in his own use, the claim is he isolated her more, increased her dependence on him.
Okay, that makes sense in that context. And the power dynamic she describes is crucial here too, right?
Absolutely. She was 19 when they met in 2005. He was 37.
Big age gap.
Huge. And he signed her to Bad Boy Records, his label. Then the relationship turned romantic pretty quickly.
So right away, there's this massive imbalance. He's her boss, this huge industry figure, and she's a young artist starting out.
Exactly. And Ms. Ventura claims he used that position right from the start to gain immense control.
The complaint says complete control over her personal life, her professional life.
That's the allegation.
Yeah.
That this control ensured she was dependent on him and ultimately stayed silent for years.
She even claims staff witnessed beatings, but nobody stepped in.
Yeah, the complaint mentions that. It says people were too afraid of Combs, which, if true, just reinforces this picture she paints of an environment totally dominated by his power.
And there's this alleged pattern described by Ms. Ventura. After the violent incidents, he'd shower her with gifts.
That cycle, she describes the alleged violence. Then these attempts to smooth things over, placate her with gifts.
What's the significance of that, typically?
Well, that pattern, as she outlines it, is pretty consistent with what you sometimes see in allegations of serial abuse. It can confuse the person, create that sense of dependency we mentioned, make it harder to leave. The gifts in this alleged context are basically a form of manipulation.
Okay, let's really focus on Ms. Ventura's allegations about sex trafficking now, because the complaint gets into these incredibly disturbing claims. Forced, unwanted sexual encounters with male sex workers.
Right, often involving illegal substances and threats, according to the complaint.
And she says she repeatedly said no, tried to push him away.
That's what she claims.
When you look at the legal basis for her claims, it's extensive.
It really is. She's citing alleged violations of federal sex trafficking laws, state laws in New York and California covering human trafficking, sexual abuse, battery, assault.
Gender-motivated violence, sexual harassment, discrimination, hostile work environment.
Exactly. The sheer number of legal claims just highlights the breadth and the severity of the abuse she alleges she experienced.
And Mrs. Ventura's complaint really tries to illustrate this alleged control with specific examples, like his early comments calling her regular, saying her nervousness was cute.
Yeah, she frames those early interactions as part of this alleged grooming process. Subtle ways he apparently established dominance, started chipping away at her boundaries.
So even things that might seem small, like reprimanding her for going out with friends after a hospital stay, but framing it as concern.
Right, the complaint presents that as an example of him tightening his control over her life, according to her.
And the incident seemed to escalate in her account. The complaint talks about him allegedly inviting himself to her 21st birthday, forcibly kissing her, insisting she spend time with him even when she said no.
And then that alleged incident in Miami, providing lots of drugs, leading to non-consensual sex. Those specific allegations from Ms. Ventura's complaint, they sort of map out a timeline of the alleged abuse, a progression, from controlling behaviors to more overtly violent and coercive acts, as she claims. The Miami incident really highlights the alleged use of substances to facilitate assault, according to her story.
The level of control she alleges feels almost total. Controlling her clothes, her appearance.
Yeah, introducing her to opiates, demanding she get prescriptions for him.
Even getting his staff involved in her personal life, her medical records.
It paints this picture of complete domination, doesn't it, according to her complaint? It speaks to the isolation she allegedly felt.
How so?
By controlling all these aspects, involving his own people, the claim is he created an environment where she had no independent support. She was constantly under his watch, his control. That's the allegation.
Okay, the complaint also mentions that Suge Knight incident.
Right, which is brought up to illustrate Combs' alleged volatility, his temper, his access to guns.
And then the claim that he made her hold his gun. These stories in her complaint really seem designed to underscore the fear, the intimidation she says she lived under.
Exactly. They emphasize the alleged climate of fear, the potential for violence, she says, permeated the relationship, demanding she carry his gun. I mean, that's particularly disturbing. It allegedly served no purpose other than making her feel unsafe and showing his power.
And the complaint also details the alleged lengths he went to hide the abuse.
Yeah, like hiding her in hotels after alleged beatings, letting injuries heal. She mentions one time after a party with Jay-Z.
And that really brutal alleged incident after she spoke to another music manager, resulting in a severe beating, stomping on her face.
According to Ms. Ventura, these instances of alleged concealment show a deliberate effort to avoid accountability. And that alleged beating after she talked to another manager, it just underscores the extreme control Combs reportedly wanted over her career, her interactions.
And the claim that his staff were involved in hiding her, then buying gifts.
Yeah, that speaks to the level of complicity Mrs. Ventura alleges existed around him.
It's just hard to fathom the fear, the feeling of being trapped that Mrs. Ventura reportedly describes. The complaint mentions she was aware of people comparing them to Ike and Tina, which says a lot, doesn't it, about public perception of those kinds of dynamics and maybe her own understanding of her situation back then.
Yeah, if that comparison was really something she was aware of, as the complaint suggests, it implies she recognized how dangerous and unhealthy the relationship allegedly was, and that this kind of dynamic, sadly, isn't unheard of, especially in that industry.
Let's focus again on Mrs. Ventura's sex trafficking allegations. The complaint describes forced participation in FOs, as they were apparently termed.
Right, allegedly meaning arranged sexual encounters with male sex workers in different hotels over several years.
The complaint states Combs was often drunk, would hit Mrs. Ventura during these encounters, and her fear kept her from refusing. It's important, like you said, the term FOs isn't explicitly defined in the excerpts we have, but the context strongly implies these forced encounters.
Yeah, the details surrounding these alleged FOs, as Mrs. Ventura recounts them, are deeply disturbing. The complaint suggests this systematic pattern of forced sexual exploitation, often paired with alleged violence and intimidation.
And the gifts again. Lavish gifts presented before or during these encounters.
That's highlighted too, yeah. is another alleged tactic used by Combs.
And according to Miss Ventura, if she even hinted at refusing or reporting this,
Ultimatums, threats, that's what she claims.
there's that shocking alleged example,
Right.
insisting she leave her own birthday dinner for an FO.
And another alleged incident where Combs reportedly dangled her friend over a balcony after one of these encounters. I mean, these specific examples in Mrs. Ventura's complaint, they paint a really vivid picture of the alleged coercion, the extreme lengths Combs reportedly went to exert his will. That balcony incident, if true, shows a complete disregard for safety, according to her allegations.
The complaint also talks about her attempts to get away from the alleged abuse.
Right, and how Combs allegedly used his network, his resources, to find her, lure her back.
There's the mention of her brief relationship with Kid Cudi, Combs' alleged reaction, threats.
And the alleged bombing of Kid Cudi's car.
Yeah, it's extreme.
These alleged actions, described by Ms. Ventura, they really demonstrate the possessive, controlling nature she attributes to the relationship. The alleged car bombing is just an extreme example of the lengths Combs reportedly went to stop her leaving or forming other relationships, according to her account.
And the abuse allegedly didn't stop when she tried to pull away. That severe beating after talking to the manager in Vegas.
And the incident in Cape Town, where he allegedly threatened an actor she was involved with.
And that claim in her complaint that he paid for security footage showing him abusing her.
It's disturbing. These continued acts of alleged abuse, even when she tried to gain independence, just highlight how difficult she reportedly found it to escape. The alleged purchase of the footage suggests an attempt to control the narrative, maybe destroy evidence, according to her claims.
And the control over her career is also there in Mrs. Ventura's complaint. The alleged threat, withhold her single release if she didn't answer his calls.
Right. She reportedly felt saying no would have severe consequences for her career, her safety, maybe even others around her.
It just highlights the immense power imbalance Combs allegedly held over her entire life, professional and personal. The threat to her career just further underscores the coercion she describes.
Yeah.
Mrs. Ventura's complaint then builds towards the alleged rape in 2018. This was apparently after dinner where she intended to finally end things.
Followed by her efforts to really separate herself, moving out, returning gifts.
But even then, her address was reportedly posted online, increasing her fear.
The alleged rape in 2018, after she'd clearly stated her intent to leave, is described as this particularly awful act of alleged violence. A final alleged attempt by Combs to maintain control. And yeah, the online posting of her address afterwards is a deeply concerning act that allegedly put her at further risk.
Eventually, Ms. Ventura took steps to formally end her record deal. The complaint states she suffered lifelong harm from the alleged abuse, needing ongoing medical psychological care.
And the legal claims, as we mentioned, go beyond just Combs. They include the defending corporations, too, alleging they played a role, facilitated the abuse, and alleged sex trafficking.
So the argument there from Ms. Ventura's side is that these companies allegedly enabled or maybe benefited from the alleged abuse.
That seems to be the core of that part of the claim, yes. And the damages she's seeking, compensatory, pain and suffering, punitive damages, attorney fees, it reflects the significant harm she claims she endured.
So wrapping this up, this deep dive into Cassie Ventura's legal complaint and the context around it, it really just hammers home how serious these allegations are. And it's crucial, obviously, for everyone listening to remember these are allegations. They haven't been proven in court. The legal process is ongoing. Our focus here has just been on understanding the specifics of Mrs. Ventura's claims as she laid them out.
What really stands out, I think, when you consider Mrs. Ventura's account, is that complex interplay of power dynamics.
Yeah.
Personal relationships, professional ones, especially in these high-pressure industries like music.
Yeah.
Her case, based on these allegations, really highlights the incredible courage it can take for someone to speak out and the potential for long-term impact from experiences like the ones she alleges.
So the final thought, maybe, focusing on Mrs. Ventura's situation here, considering all these details from her legal complaint, what does it really reveal about the challenges people face navigating relationships, personal and professional, where there are these huge power imbalances? It's definitely a sobering thought. And it keeps sparking these important conversations about the experiences of people like Mrs. Ventura. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.